Yo, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Robert Marshall. I am so excited about tonight's show. Listen, we got some hitters that's going to be talking about some real stuff. I'm talking about real stuff. Listen, grab your cousins, grab Pookie and them, tell them that it's time. Um, we in here. We in here. We're making it happen, and we got some of my brothers here who's going to keep it real and talk about their experiences. So talk about some of their hurdles. Listen, I'm gonna put my mic a little closer so y'all can hear me. Listen, I'm excited, yo. It's gonna be popping. We're talking real. We're talking raw. So welcome to the I Am Man podcast. It's going down. It's happening. Listen, I want you guys to show us some love. I want you to follow us. I want you to subscribe. I want you to hit the button. Whatever you got to do, I want you to hit it so we can make it happen. Listen, it's gonna be dope. Not only do we have myself, but we got Aaron Perry, we got Sergio, we got Eddie, we got the Torrance Walton, the people's pastor, who's going to be joining us tonight, talking about their journey to fatherhood. Oftentimes with men, you see them leading, you see them working, you see them being fathers, you see them being husbands, you see them being boyfriends, but you don't get to hear their heart and hear their experience. So here on the I Am Man podcast, this is a space where every man's voice is heard. Every man's voice has a place. And I am excited to have these brothers on here tonight. They're going to talk real. Listen, if you're looking for church, this is not it. I'm going to say it again. If you're looking for church, this is not it. This is a real, raw, candid conversation from real men who's living real life and who have real issues and are doing it every day, who are being conquerors, being superheroes, being fathers, being husbands. They're out here making it happen. So listen, I'm not going to prolong the time anymore. I'm so excited to have these men here. And they're going to be with me right now. All right. What's up, everybody? How you guys doing?
What's going on?
Listen, we got Torrance Walton, the people's pastor. We got Aaron Perry. Yo, he in here. We got Sergio in Orlando. We got Eddie right here in Chicago. And we got Keenan all the way doggone in Bufu Land in Tennessee. Yo, I'm so excited that y'all have decided to join me on the I Am Man podcast. It's an honor to have you. Yo, let's jump right in because I know this is going to get good. So I always wind up kicking off the podcast asking, yo, what is your definition of a man? I'm gonna let Eddie go first, and I'm gonna facilitate the conversation a little bit. So you guys who are watching at home, I want you to share it. Yo, brothers who are on here, I want you to share this tonight so we can get some more viewers. So I want to start off with Eddie. Eddie, what is your definition of a man?
So the definition of a man for me is, I mean, that was something that for me growing up, I didn't have much of an example at times. So for me, as I grew up, I started to realize just from little examples from my dad and from other men, but a man is someone who's vulnerable. You know, a man is not afraid to shed a tear or two when situations get tough. You know, it takes a man to be responsible. I think when I hear the word man comes with responsibility. Someone who walks in character and integrity. I think that's something that's huge for a man. You know, and we all know that, you know, anyone can make a baby, anyone can be a father, but it takes a man to really father a child. And so the big one to me is that character and integrity is huge.
Okay, cool. That's love. Sergio, man, what is your definition of a man, bro?
So for me, it's kind of backwards. So for me to be a man, like my definition of a man is the opposite of what I seen growing up, to be honest. So, I mean, to me, a man is a provider, which I had that growing up, but more than that, an example, a leader, a lover. You know, you got to be compassionate, lead by example. Um, you know, being vulnerable, man. I think that's the biggest thing. He said it. Being vulnerable has been like when I started becoming vulnerable as a man, as a father, as a husband, everything changed for me. So, but definitely leading by example for sure.
Dope, dope. Keenan, what's up? What is your working definition of a man, bro?
Um, I mean, I would say a man, personally, someone who takes initiative. One, there's nothing more boyish than a guy that has to be told to do something. So for me, me being a man, nobody's gonna have to remind me that I have the responsibility of being a father. I have the responsibility of being a protector. I have the responsibility of being a husband. Just having that initiative, and I love the integrity like that. That's a big thing with me. Men are integral, so that's pretty much my little small list.
Okay. I'm interested to know people's pastor. What's up? Talk to me.
A man is a mature sex called male. No, I'm just slut. No,
I said
sincerely.
pause. The first word we done already said the word sex already. It's, it's happening.
No, a man is someone that is not just mature as far as age wise, but one that's a male that's responsible about his actions,
Yeah,
and his actions show fruit that he actually is a protector, not just of himself, but of others. If it's his family, if it's his wife, kids, his career, whatever he's overseeing, he's responsible. He's a good steward over whatever has been presented to him. That's what I look at it as a man. And
All
he,
right, I love that. Those are some good saved answers. So I'm looking. So tonight's show is all about our journey to this place called fatherhood. Not, and you notice I didn't just say father; I said dad.
yeah,
I think it's definitely a difference between being a father, and being a dad. I think many people who, actually everybody on the face of the planet has a father, but everybody on the face of the planet does not have a dad. And I know that there are a lot of the issues, the social issues that we see in the world are caused by the lack of a dad, really, a lack of a dad in people's lives. So I don't know if you guys know my story, but in my first book, I give a glimpse of, I didn't know who my biological father was until I was 25 years old. And my mother really didn't tell the truth. I'll say it like that. She didn't tell the truth about who my father was until my 25th birthday, when my aunt got mad at her. And they had a conference. I wouldn't say got mad, but they had some type of confrontation,
yeah,
and it came out, well, da 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 da. That ain't his daddy anyway, So
yeah,
it came out like that. And to be honest, my father, he could care less if I am breathing, pretty much. And I've reached out to him throughout the years to say, yo, I'm here, I exist, I have children. He's admitted he was my father, but because I was the result of an affair with a preacher's wife. It was like, yeah, he was married. He felt like he got caught up, and he's like, yo, I don't want anything to do with it. And now for him, I am his reminder that he had an affair with somebody and got pregnant and got caught up. So regardless, and I think for a long time, I didn't tell that story, but for a long time, I felt like I could never achieve enough, do enough, be enough. And one of the most painful areas of my life was actually becoming a father. People look at my kids, and my kids are gorgeous, but people don't really know. Sometimes, for me, it was painful being a father because the love that I was giving to my kids, I
yeah,
was like, well, dang, I'm never going to get the love that I'm giving them from my
yeah.
father. And so that was, that was a hurdle, and sometimes a continuous hurdle that I have to overcome. Sometimes at different phases of my life. So I want to kind of throw that out there. Have any of you guys actually, have any stories like that where you didn't have the ideal father growing up, and you dealt with, and you're dealing and processing through that experience?
I can say I personally am. My dad was actually in the household. My parents have been married almost 37 years, but my dad was a provider. Like that was his definition of a man. I have to provide. So my dad worked. He missed basketball games, a lot of stuff that interests me. So I held a lot of resentment for that because I never got that fatherly son bond where it's like oh, me and my dad going fishing, or my dad is coming. You know what I mean? Like I never got that. I always got the man part of, hey, men don't cry, men are tough, men protect what's theirs, men work. So like that's the side of the man that I got, and the emotional part went. My emotional side was handicapped. So becoming a father, my wife and I. Sorry about that. That's my oldest son calling me, not knowing. But my wife and I actually just had a discussion about this. That with my oldest son, I was very emotionally draining because I didn't have the concept of what a real man was. When my son cried, I was always on him. Hey, straighten up, stop that crying. I was never that. Hey man, what you crying about? What we need to do to change this? It was always, hey, you acting like a girl. And then when I had my second son, I started seeing his emotions 10 times worse than my first son. So I felt it was God showing me like, hey, it's not just about being the tough guy. Like you have to love these men. So like, and that's the situation we deal with now in society. We have a lot of tough guys and they're emotionless. So that's why it's easy for a grown man to go kill a 9-year-old like in Chicago. You know what I mean? So the compassionate part of us lacks because of what we have been taught men are. Is actually the opposite. So it's actually killing us, not killing us, but handicapping us as being full men.
Well, that's good. Anybody else got any stories like that?
Well, I can chime in. So, I had a father in the house, which was my stepfather, and my biological father, he wasn't really around. We got a working relationship now, but it was unique because if anybody ever saw my siblings, my mom's kids, I got a twin brother. We're lighter, and so everybody else in the house dark skin, brown skin, and I'm over here looking like something ain't adding up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know this my mom, and it felt like you was disenfranchised in your own house without even speaking it. But it was one of those things where just that identity, growing up when you can know who you are, where you come from. Besides just like, oh, I'm from Inglewood, or I go to this school. It was like that identity that when you know that your father is present, even if your father, as we all know, is dysfunctional. I had the absentee father, when I was younger. He had his own issues that he was dealing with. So, me trying to navigate through that and also try to establish relationship with, my stepfather was unique because I'm not his first child, and he has other kids in the household. And you're trying to figure out, like, man, how does this dynamic work? Is there favoritism? And so it was always this gap that I always said, and it followed me, in life. When you go to games, like you said, like me playing basketball, not having my dad in the stands, but you see other fathers in the stands, rooting their kids on.
Yeah.
And so, that sense of identity, that sense of strength that comes with knowing that you got that man, that masculine figure, not just your mom, which your mom can do, but that's just backing you up. It brings another level of confidence in life that I had to learn to process through other men, because my father wasn't a present father in my childhood and teenage years.
Wow. So, Aaron, I'm interested to know, like, what type of father, are you? What type of father did you have growing up? And man, how do you think your children or your child views you?
So my parents, they're actually celebrating their 30th anniversary this month, and he's always been present in my life. I've had in my childhood, I always saw him as the disciplinary type of person because he was in the military. He was pretty strict with everything he did, and throughout my whole childhood and teenage years, like man, almost like I was scared of him. But when I turned 18, him and I started working together and we developed a different kind of relationship. And even after that, right now I can call him up and we can have a friendly conversation, not like a father son type of conversation, but we're true friends. And that's something that I really honor and I respect and I appreciate about my father. My father has always been a provider. Um, and that's something that I try to do. I try to be a provider, and not just financially, but also a provider of my time, a provider of my presence, a provider of love, because that's something that a lot of people don't experience. And like I saw it especially with girls. Like when I was a teenager and I would try to talk to a girl, a lot of times she might have had daddy issues. And I hated that because she was so hurt from her daddy issues that she wouldn't even open up to me. And I told myself, that one of the things that I needed in my wife was that she had a relationship with her father. And thankfully, I did have the opportunity to marry somebody that had a relationship with her father. But my son, I have one son, he's 2, and then my wife is pregnant right now with a baby girl. So I'm really excited about
Man, come on, fruitful.
that. um, so right now, I can't really see exactly. My son can't explain to me how his outview or how he perceives me. But I like to think that I'm, the one he can go to when he needs help. My wife and I, we joked around before we had kids, and we said, or I told her that whenever I have to discipline my children, I'm gonna discipline them, and then right after that, we're gonna hug. We're gonna, do everything, and I'm gonna tell them that I love them, and we're just gonna move forward. And I do that now. So like when my son does something, that he has no business doing, I discipline him, but then I always make sure to follow that up with saying, "Hey, I love you. Give me a hug, give me a kiss, and then go on about your business." And I think that's important to follow up discipline with love, but that's something else. But yeah.
That's good. I'm glad to hear how you're sharing your journey, your perspective, and your experience, and you're bringing that positive energy to your house, to your son. That's amazing. And I think we as all men, as men, we endeavor to do that. We endeavor to be healthy. We endeavor to produce whole children and whole household. My mentor Dion says it like this. He says that men are given a world, and they are given the world by God to govern. And whatever they are responsible for, they are. Look at me, I sound like him. They're responsible for governing that world. And so sometimes in that, with that being said, when we are trying to govern that world, create safe spaces for the world, for the people that we're responsible for, we have to then, because we are the people who are creating the safe space, we have to kind of fight the junk to protect the space. So I'm interested to, and that was a good way of saying that. We have to protect, and fight the junk that tries to come in and take over or take root in our children and our families. And I'm interested, Eddie, in knowing from you and from Sergio, what are some things that you guys have to contend with in order to create those safe spaces, and in order to make sure that you're well, your kids are well, your wives are well, and even if those things are from within, what are some of the things you have to contend with, Eddie?
Yeah, I think for me, I think one of the biggest things is, making sure the world brings so many distractions our way, as men, from A to Z. and really guarding ourselves to make sure we put ourselves in a situation to not only honor ourselves, right, but honor our spouses. And as we honor our spouse or the mother of our child, then we honor our child as well, and our child sees those things. So I think one of the biggest things that we need to contend with, and we contend with as men, as well, can be our pride, right? Baby mama says, don't discipline our child that way. You're like, well, I'm the father. I'm gonna do what I got to do to discipline the child. My wife says, "Hey, the child. This is not how we do it. This is not how this individual, receives a rebuke or a correction." And you're like, "Well, this is how I learned. This is how I was taught." So it's like kind of having to adjust those things as a father. It's like, man, and I wasn't a kid that was beat or abused or anything like that. But correction was brought my way in a different manner. I mean, being Hispanic, you see the memes and stuff like the chancleta, the sandal coming straight at the head, right? So it's one of those things that we need to really contend with, a partnership with the mother of your child or our spouse, to be able to bring the proper correction that needs to be brought for the particular child, because they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
Man. So I'm interested. So as far as things that you have to contend with, like, so do you have do you have a blended family? So do you have a child from a different relationship, and now you have a wife with another child?
No.
Okay.
That was just examples I'm throwing out that
Good.
way.
So Sergio, yo, talk to me, bro.
What's going on, man? So for me, so I have a 5-year-old boy from a past relationship, right? And then she came with 2 little girls, right? So I have 2 daughters, and then I got a baby boy on the way. So I got my own kid. I got 2 kids that are mine now, but they were hers. And then we got a baby together on the way. So I got like a little mix of everything. For me, he's an amazing father. My real father is an amazing father. I also had a stepfather, and now I understand a lot of things that he did and why he did it. But I had to unlearn so many things to be able to do what I do now. You know what I mean? Like, to be a father at home. So my stepfather wasn't very present, but when he was, he was harsh. He was an alcoholic. Um, but in his way, he always tried teaching me, right? He always tried disciplining me. So when I got my kids, I had to take some of the disciplining things I learned from him, and then some of the things I learned from my real father, who, him, he's a pastor, and he's different. He disciplines different. He disciplines with more mercy, more love, more patience. So it's kind of a mixture of two. But as far as like creating safe spaces, so when I got with my wife, she had her way. She was a single mom, right, of 2 little girls. So very overprotective. She created her own way of taking care of the girls, and she was doing the best that she can. And she's an amazing mommy. But there was no father, and she comes with her own, you know, father issues. So me coming into their life was hard. So being a dad is hard. Let's just be real, right? Being a dad, being a father is hard. There's no manual, right? There's no one way to do it. I think it all goes, depending on your kids. If you have boys, if you have girls, if you have, the ages. But for me, because the girls, they have been through a lot as when they were little. I had to. One of the biggest things is the way I treat my wife. Like you said, honor her, love on her, be patient, be merciful, almost be, I don't even know how to like put into words, but like um like almost living in like I guess honor is the best word to put it, so that they can see that, because when I came into those kids' lives, man, they were like, not this guy, I don't know who you are, you know what I mean? They were very overprotective. But so it's them seeing the way I love their mom, changed a little bit of their perspective and kind of softened them up, and then that allowed me to go in and be able to love on them. You know, but what was hard for me was my stepfather was the kind of guy that was like, "Yo, you're 13 and a virgin. You're gay, dude. You like you're gay, bro. Like you never had a girlfriend, dude. You're whack." And so I grew up with that mentality. Oh, you're a man. You can't cry. And here I got little girls, and I grew up with this mentality. That if you cry, you gotta shut up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're not listening, you get whooped and you get sent to you. So it's different. And actually, my wife had to teach me a lot of things because I have little girls. But you know, I just try to be patient and loving. As far as like creating safe space, like I said, I just honor my wife, man, and everything falls in line. And I honor my kids, man. You got to honor your kids too. You love on them. You treat them like they're gonna be women, so you got to treat them like little ladies. And if they're boys, if you have boys, same thing. So my firstborn, I haven't had the chance to raise him. I didn't get a chance to be his father. That's still in process. But so it's the little boy that we have on the way right now. It's gonna be my first time basically raising a boy, with my wife. So I got a lot to learn still, but I'm excited, man.
So, tell me if I'm pressing in too much, Sergio, but I'm interested to know. Reason being, because there are men out there that I know right now who who have not had the opportunity to be fathers to their children for one reason or another. Maybe it was baby mama drama. Maybe it was the girl was upset. There's a slew of storylines that go to that. How do you process? How do you live through not being able to see or be in your child's life someone that has your DNA? How do you cope with that?
Right. So I always explain it like this. It's like having your heart beating outside of your chest all the time. He's my blood, right? He's my firstborn. But not to get super spiritual, but it was the hardest decision of my life. So when my journey is pretty much this, I was with somebody out of disobedience to God. God had warned me. You got to be real. What God had warned me. I got her pregnant. I didn't even know she was pregnant. We broke up. She came back. Hey, I'm pregnant. And so I had a decision to make. Do I continue living that life, or do I make the hard decision, which I knew that walking away from that relationship was going to cost me my son at first, but I had to trust God. So that's a huge part of, you understanding like what comes next and what I'm about to say. It was hard because I made that decision, but in my selfish ways, like I still expected it to be perfect. Like, hey, we can still co-parent. I can have the baby. You can have the baby. You know what I mean? I had a lot of unrealistic expectations, and I was very young. I was 20 years old. Yeah, 21 years old. I was 21 years old when he was born. So I was still very young. Guys think they're men at 21, but that's not true. That's nowhere near the truth. So I was very young. Man, I used to scream. I used to cry, flip tables. I used to lose my mind because, I wanted to see him. I wanted to be with him. But every time I would go see him, she just wanted to be with me. Everything was about like always making it personal. And I would tell her like, this is about the baby, I never put into consideration her feelings because I was so focused on having my son, you know. Um, it's hard. It still is hard. But with time, you calm down, you learn, it teaches you patience. It teaches you to really to trust God because nowadays, man, this world is scary, and there's so many like men need their fathers. They really do. They need their mothers, man. I never intended to take my son away from his mother, but they need their fathers too, man. It's so important. That's why, man, Jesus had a stepfather. You know what I mean? Let's just be real. So I always worry about, how he's being raised, what he's being taught, how he's gonna be, am I gonna be picking him up from jail or am I gonna be, you know what I mean? So there's so many things that come into this, but um, God has given me peace, man. God has given me His word, and so I dwell on that. Sometimes I cry, like when it's his birthday and stuff. Special occasions is hard, but
Man,
be
that's
patient.
real. That's real, man. Thank you for sharing that. Yo, so one of the issues that I tend to have to work through is resentment towards my father. That's something that God has had to put some stuff on. I remember when Father's Day would come around before I had children, and for Father's Day, that was one of the most painful holidays to kind of have to live through because I couldn't understand for the life of me. I got degrees. I'm married. I got. I'm doing it. I've. And you don't want to be in my life, and you don't want to acknowledge me. And I think I lived in that state. And I think for also another thing that jacked me up a little bit, I kept running from pastor to pastor, from church to church, from leader to leader, looking for a daddy, looking for, and I didn't mean to hit this vein, but I'm going to hit it. I'm going to get off of it. I was looking for a father in pastors and in mentors. And I wasn't looking for them to be my pastor. I was looking for them to be my dad. And when I placed those unrealistic expectations upon them and they failed me, it sent me further and it sent me further away and had more resentment. And I think one of the things that I really had to work on and really had to process through being a father is resentment towards my father, and resentment towards people who call themselves my father, and then drop me for one reason or another. I asked that because I want to know, have any of you brothers had to work through? I know Keenan, you said you a little bit, but have any of you had to work through resentment towards your father? And how, and one thing I love that Aaron said, he talked about how the evolution of his relationship with his father has changed, over the years. Have any of you had to work through resentment and grow into something else? Eddie, you shaking your head, so you might
Yeah,
need
I
to.
mean, it's kind of crazy because right now, I'm kind of I'm trying to work on reconciling the relationship between me and my dad. My dad left when I was 13 years old. Literally, I was playing baseball at the park, one of the things like my sanctuary back then. And what happened was he pulls up, never really came to any of my games. So it's kind of weird. And he just flat out breaks the news like, listen, I'm going to Puerto Rico. I'm 13 at this point. Like I'm growing into my own. Like this is the time where, a young man that's growing up needs a father figure. And things for me right there went downhill. Mom and him were already separated. But when he left, that was like, and being gone for 10 years, like the bulk of my adolescence, the bulk of the time where a young man needs a father figure, I was distraught. You know what I'm saying? It was something that I went down a path that I would never have imagined myself. And it was only by, in all honesty, by the grace of God that I didn't get myself locked up, get myself arrested, get myself killed, or got myself in gangs or anything like that. Because, when your father leaves and you have that father figure that's gone and no one really there to kind of supplement that, it stings, and you start looking for that in all the wrong places, and that's exactly what kind of started to happen to me until I realized, hey, listen, I can't go down this route, because if I go down this route and this road, it ain't gonna look bright. So,
So, man, I know you kind of skated over a little bit, but we're on the Iron Man podcast, so I'm just gonna ask, what did some of that journey look like for you?
yeah. So I mean, premarital sex, drugs, alcohol. I would drink a pint of Bacardi and lime all by myself at the age of 15. Just really kind of getting to a point where I just wanted to block everything out, and not really, not necessarily suicidal, because that wasn't the case, because I love to live and I love to breathe and I love to do what I do. But it was so so crazy that, and then mom's going through her issues with substance abuse and things of that nature. And it just kind of just compounded on the fact that, dad's gone, mom's not acting right. I got to grow up. I got to be mom. I got to be dad. I got to make hot dogs with bread. You know what I'm saying? So the struggle was real. And I attributed that to, my father was not here. My father was gone, and I had to step up early. And now, Eddie's growing up all messed up and kind of things like that. You see other fathers and things of that nature, and it kind of stings a little bit, like, as Aaron was saying, and, fathers going to baseball games and things of that nature. That wasn't the case for me. You know what I'm saying? And it was hard. It stung not having a father figure there. And, realizing that he was back, even when he came back to Chicago from Puerto Rico, I found out, and it was probably months, if not even a year or two before I finally reached out to even, and this was me being saved. I was hurt. You know what I'm saying? It was something that stung, and it was a root that kind of held me down for a while, to really finally just reach out and say, hey, listen, we got to talk a little bit. And so we have bits, conversations here and there. And I'm still working. Even this past Sunday, called him on my way home, and trying to just work on, because I do want him to have a relationship with both of his grandchildren, something that I didn't have. Like, my son wants to build a birdhouse. I play sports. I don't build, you know what I'm saying? I don't work on cars. My dad does that stuff. So I'm about to hit him up, sometime soon, maybe for Father's Day. Hey, listen, let's get together. Let's build this birdhouse.
Man, that's love, man. I thank you guys for your candidness and your transparency. So I wanna kind of transition a little bit and ask this question, because as men, as men first, we have responsibilities. As husbands, as fathers, we have a whole different rankings of responsibility. How do you balance fatherhood, relationships, employment, your hobbies? How do you balance all of that? I'm interested, Aaron, and Aaron, to know kind of, how do you balance that? Keenan, how do you balance that? And Torrance, how do you balance all of what you do and still manage to be a dad?
For me, that's something that I've been trying to focus on for the last 2 years, particularly because I'll give you this quick little background. In my job field, I would have to travel sometimes, and I was put on an assignment to Decatur, which is about 2.5 hours away from me. And I was going there, coming back, going there, coming back. And then it got to the point to where my job said, hey, we're tired of putting you in a hotel. We need you to move to Decatur. And I have a house here, my family, all my friends live up here. I couldn't just move. So I said, all right, how about this? If you guys can get my brother a job, I'll move down there, and we'll try to make it work. My wife and I, we spoke. We said, we'll make it work somehow. Because I didn't want to be out of a job, but I still wanted to continue to provide financially. But in my head, I was only thinking about the finances. I wasn't thinking about my time, my presence, and everything, because it turned out I was down there 5 days a week, and I would try to come home every weekend. And so I was a part-time dad. I was a part-time husband. I was part-time present, and I hated it. I did this for a year, because I remember on my son's first birthday, I had to go ahead and take off work so that I could be here for his birthday. And then, things just, it wasn't sitting well with me. My wife and I were bumping heads a lot about everything. And it came to the point where I said, it took a year, unfortunately, but I said, you know what, I need to do something. So I started, looking for other jobs, started applying, had an interview, things worked out. I put in a 2-week notice at my job, and I was like, cool. And this is going to be up in Schaumburg area. So still about 30, 40 minutes away from my house, but I'll be back home. So the day before, no, 2 days before my last day, my job approached me, my company approached me, and they said, hey, you've been with us for almost 8 years now. We want to go ahead and make you an offer. We'll offer you some more money, and you can work from home if you want to. And I said, hey, say no more. I contacted the other company where I was going. I said, hey, I'm going a different route in my career path. And so since September, October, I've been working from home, and it completely changed everything. You know, now I'm here every night because I would have to FaceTime my wife and tuck my son into bed virtually and stuff. And that killed me. I hated that because I always told myself I wanted to be present. I wanted to be there for everything. And I was missing out on stuff. You know, I was down 2 hours away when my son went to the apple orchard for the first time. And that was like something that I was like, I wanted to go there, you know, County Line Orchard. I wanted to eat the donuts and stuff with them, but it killed me. And now I'm here and I get to wake up with them. I get to tuck them into bed. I get to eat lunch with them. I get to, you know, experience a bunch of stuff. And I want to make sure that it stays like that when my daughter gets here, especially because, you know, having a son is one thing, but having a daughter is a completely different thing. And I haven't even fully experienced it yet, but I already know, you know, that's gonna be my baby girl because my son, he's on my wife's hip all the time, and I'm like, hey, now it's gonna be my turn. I'm gonna have my own now.
So you know, as you guys as you answer, it's funny because my wife and we've had the same conversation. For me not having a father, one of the issues or one of the things that I had an issue with, or she had an issue with me, was presence, right? Because your presence really is the present to your children and to your family. And for me, I'm like, yo, I'm trying to build the world. You know, I'm trying to build something. I'm trying to change the world. I think when I first got married, had our first son, you know, my son at 1 years old, I think went on a total of 28 flights his first year of birth, because we were just in the airport that much, traveling, preaching, teaching, workshopping, because I was going to be a gladiator for Jesus and travel all over the world. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just take my family with me. You know, they'll just be with me. And my wife was like, yo, bro, hey, you know, the first kid she could manage. The second one, she's like, you know, and so on top of work and on top of all of that, I think I thought it was very offensive when she came to me first and was like, yo, I need you to be home. We need to settle down. We need your presence. And I was like, okay, bet. So I was there and I was home, but I wasn't there. And that was a conversation we always had, being present physically, but not being emotionally or physically, or not being emotionally present at home. So I wondered, you know, and I would think some of the stuff she would talk about was so small. And I'm like, I'm trying to change the world and get people healed free. And you talking about some kids that don't even know how to say daddy yet. And I had to contend with that. So I'm looking now to hear. I want to hear from Keenan and Torrance to see, because I know Torrance, you're a police officer, and I know Keenan, you know, you're an artist. So how do you guys contend with all that? Torrance, you first.
Yeah,
It's a miracle, man. No, just let. It's like a legit juggling act. To be honest, it's a lot of factors and variables that come in. You know, it's like you don't have a monopoly on doing things. Because me, I'm like very proactive in things I do. I still like to play sports. You know, you have these dilemmas, these inside tugs. Like, man, I'm still young too. I need to be active. I ain't trying to have. It's just these different things that we deal with and internalize. And so one thing that I had to deal with, you know, is, you know, that really keeps me centered is listening to my wife. My wife would be like, hey, Torrance, you only changed one pamper this week. And I'm like, you lying. But things like that, I realized, like, dang, I'm here, but I'm not present. You know, I come in from work, and if they're in the bed already, I realize, like, man, I missed it. I don't want to be, you know, having time away from them. And it's always like, man, keeping at the forefront, like what's most important, and me not having, my biological father around, it really like helps me in the midst of the so many distractions we have that sometimes are not bad distractions, because work is important because men need to provide for their family. They want to provide for their family.
Yeah.
I'm a bivocational minister. I'm a pastor with a ministry, doing that. But I'm like, what's first things first? And keeping that in the forefront, keeping first things first that help you balance when other things are tugging for your attention. And things sometimes don't always go the way you plan, but when you always keep the right perspective, I believe that's the way I'm able to balance. And when I realize I underperform, I try to put more deposits in the next week. It can be even like things that we deal with in our generation as far as parenting, like social media and our cell phones. That's another distraction that we have that we got to be honest with. Sometimes this can keep us tuned out. We ain't on the TV. We over here on Facebook or Instagram, on YouTube, and realize like, dang, get a kid an iPad, and that's still not being present. So it's really those things like that, like really understanding like, man, you want to be in the moment with your kids. You don't want to miss, like things that happen. And I remember my wife went on a boat ride with my daughter. I was at work so jealous, like a dad jealousy. And I'm like, man, this is like, I want to, and it motivates me to say, man, what can you be creative about to make sure that you're like getting a chance to be in their life, creating experiences with them and things like that. So I really just say, keeping at the forefront that your kids and your family is the most important thing with everything else that I'm juggling. Trying to, do your own hobbies, your own desires. It's not that it's you can't do it. It just has its place. But first things comes first. And I always have to remember that, man, my kids are first. I had these kids. I knew what I was doing, and I have to be responsible with that. That's my answer.
What's up, Kingdom? Talk to me, bro.
Yeah. I would have to say the balance came. I'll go from young Keenan pre-marriage, right before I met my wife. So young Keenan was always being the musician, going to every church, trying to make my money, trying to keep money in my bank account, trying to, make sure I'm financially stable, because you grow up, you always hear men are financially stable before they get a wife. So it's like, man, I got to make sure I got enough money. If I do take a girl out, she ain't got to pay for nothing. So kind of like that male chauvinist type thing, like I'm going to do everything. I don't need you. So when I got married, it kind of carried over, and it started started to slow the process of my marriage, like pushing my wife away from me. And this is maybe year 1 or 2, me still trying to run to every service. Every time a pastor called, can you come play? Can you come sing? And then, I got the business manager job with AT&T. So now I'm making like good money, and I got my side hustle with being a musician. So it's like, man, I'm providing, but I'm absent in my home. So, my wife, it took her, and it's crazy you said that. It took my wife telling me like, hey, like we come first. Like you missing so much, like missing my son's first football game, his first touchdown. I'm salty as ever. I'm the dad and my wife at the football game, but I'm out trying to hustle the dollar. Got to close one more sale, or, trying to go to this writing session or this shed, or so it's like, prioritizing that charity begins at home. It's that simple. And growing up Church of God in Christ, not knowing and not reading the word for myself, always just going with, oh, this scripture applies to what the pastor wanted me to do, not really analyzing that the scripture was for me, what God wanted me to do. So realizing that charity began at my home, my address, my family, my children, like that's when I realized nothing will come before them anymore. And the move from Chicago to Atlanta, that really changed for me and my wife, because now we had to become independent. So now I really had to learn how to structure my time with my wife, with work, with the activities I wanted to do, the men's leagues, the 25 and over leagues. So really trying to prioritize what came first. All right, I did 80% of my time with the wife and kids. She's going to allow me these 2 days of the week to completely do me. So it's like, we figured out, we figured out a plan that worked for us, like, hey, you go do this. I need you to pick up the kids because granted, she's working too. She's tired too. So me being a man, not even realize, oh, she the wife, she the mother, she's the nurturer. She'll take care of the kids. Not knowing that was killing my marriage. So, like God had to really deal with me like, yo, dude, you got to start here. You can't start with finances first and push your family last. You can't start with trying to be the artist first and push your family behind. It starts with your household.
Yeah, that's true. Really good. I think one of the things that my lessons that I learned from my wife, and even when I got married, was God first, family second, and ministry last. Right?
Yeah.
God first, ministry. God first, family second, and ministry last. And for a lot of people, their understanding of God, ministry, church are synonymous.
Mm-hmm.
They're synonymous with one another. And I think, and I have to put my 2 cents in. I think as a pastor, as a preacher, as an evangelist, I think church has killed so many marriages, has ruined so many children's lives. There's all types of jokes about PKs, preachers' kids, all that jazz, because people's understanding of what I do, people have an understanding of what I do. God loves me, or my love for God, or God's love towards me is predicated upon what I do for him. And so that type of mentality, it's always, for me growing up, I was always at church. And for me, I'm an advocate for males who've been who've experienced sexually traumatic experiences. For me, I tried to find fathers in people in church, and those fathers were the same people who wound up being my abusers. And I had to contend with that. But you guys have been giving me so much life tonight. I just really want to start wrapping this thing up and ask you guys, what are things right now as men, as fathers, that you're going through? We want to keep the comments, just kind of go right to it. What are some things that you're going through to become the best version of yourself for your children? I'm going to start off with Eddie.
I think the biggest thing that I'm growing through, is kind of that being able to balance. I think that's one of the things that I'm growing through. For me, playing sports is huge, obviously. So having to balance that with work and ministry, and be present, that's one of the things that I'm growing through. And also, the fact that you really didn't have that father figure in your life, to kind of give you a starting block in essence, kind of having to, in essence, kind of build those blocks, not necessarily on your own, because I have a tremendous mentor in my senior pastor, a spiritual father who's kind of been the example and has kind of set the example, set the bar for me to be able to take my love for my kids and stuff like that to another level. So really just growing through seeing examples of other men and kind of what they're doing to be dads.
That's dope. What about you, Sergio?
For me, man, I think creating something, building something sustainable for my family, and at the same time being present with my family, and also being aware of, their dreams, their desires, their wants, what they want to build, what they want to create, from my wife all the way to my smallest one. So for sure, that's a growing experience, because sometimes we get so caught up in like, man, I'm trying to create this. I want to make this. I want to do this. It's for you. It's for you. It's for you. But really, they have their own aspirations, and so for me, that's something that I'm learning to balance. So we just moved out here to Miami about a year ago. We're about to hit a year married. We're about to have a baby. We got little girls, so we a lot of things going on at the same time, and also trying to just grow and like parenting together. Something as simple as that. Quality time together, balancing. Spending time with the kids and spending time with each other. So it's a lot of stuff, but it's those are the biggest things right now.
Good. So, Aaron, current, well, like, what are you growing through right now, bro?
Something that I'm going through and growing through is learning to be a leader because, I have to be able to lead my family. I have to be able to lead my wife. I have to be able to lead my kids. I have to, when they're trying to figure out what they need to do, they need to be able to look to me to tell them what to do. And I need to be able to look to God to be able to say, God, what do I do for my family? So that's one of the things. But then one of the other things is being before we had kids, my wife and I always told each other we need to learn how to be husband and wife before we try to learn to be mother and father. And that's something that is still going on. I need to continually learn to develop my relationship with my wife because before I had kids, I was a husband. While I have kids, I'm a husband. And when we're empty nesters, 20 plus years from now, I'm still going to be a husband. We're not going to have any kids around, but I'm still going to be a husband. And loving my wife is one of the ways that I teach my son to be a man. Is one of the ways that I teach my son to be a future husband is by loving my wife. And that's just something that I continually try to do is be better at loving my wife and be more intentional in the ways that I love my wife so that my son can look up to me and see, what, daddy really loves mommy or, however. So that's something that I'm working towards and growing through.
I think, Aaron, that was really powerful. One thing that we haven't really hit on is, how we treat our wives and what that speaks to, how that speaks to and correlates in our children's lives. That was powerful, Aaron. Talk to me, Terrence. Terrence, what's up?
The biggest thing for me, like I said, is the balance of like I played sports. I played all the way to college, and the men that became fathers for me was my basketball coaches. And one thing that I kind of see myself do at times, the wife had to tell me, like, if my daughter bump her head, I got two little girls. My daughter bump her head or something, I'm like, get up, you a Walton. You hit the floor, you hit the floor ain't hit you. And I'm realizing, like, okay, I gotta adjust because that was the side of me that just knew how to perform instead of being just empathetic and things like that. And I think my daughters and my wife is bringing that out of me because sometimes I can be that coach, that drill sergeant, that just let's go perform, let's go. This is what we do. This, and giving that chance for them to grow, even as I'm growing, because it's grace for that. Sometimes we want them to be perfect and grace, but we still growing. And so giving grace for your wife and your children to grow and you to grow at the same time, giving grace for everybody to go. Big G for the every G, everybody to grow. There you go.
Keenan, what's up, bro?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to piggyback off Torrance. Grace has been my growing through that. My dad, man, we have a great relationship now, and he said something along the lines of, "You can't be mad at your kids for something that you were never delivered from." So my kids have my attitude. My kids are they're quick, they're very witty. So their responses are just like mine, and I have the tendency to be like, "Who you talking to?" Or I don't, like. But I have to remember, like, Negro, you the same way. You know what I mean? So it's like, and even to go back to what Aaron said, learning how to not be that way with my wife as well. learning how to love her like the Bible says, love your wife like Christ loved the church. If you think of how Christ loved the church, it's through our attitudes, our stepping away from him, our disobedience, everything. So it's like no matter what your wife throw at you, you got to stick that out. You got to love her through it. So showing my sons how to properly love my wife, because my wife didn't have her father at all. So it's still a learning curve of her adjusting to, I don't want to say a male authoritative figure, but having that authority of a man in her life is still an adjustment. So that grace of having that grace for her in that situation has been my learning in almost 11 years of marriage, like still learning how to love her through her moments when she goes back to, like, don't no man talk to me like that. You know what I mean? Like, so that grace, that's what I'm growing through right now.
That's powerful, dude. My wife used to tell me all the time, "You're not my daddy. Stop talking to me like you my dad." And I'm like, "Yo, I ain't trying to be your dad." You know.
I'm governing. No, just
Oh, man.
Yo, so I think for me, one thing that I'm growing through is I have an older son. I have a 4-year-old. I have a 4-year-old son and a 3-year-old son and a 1.5, a 2-year-old daughter. And I think one thing that I'm working through is being stern, but being grace filled at the same time. I think, in all transparency, my son, since we've been quarantined, my oldest son, he is just like me, and it's hard, like when I tell what Keenan said, my son is just like me, bro. He's sneaky. He's whenever he gets in trouble, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. Like, he's very much like that, and I have to. One day he asked me because I was doing something, and I snapped like I kind of snap. I was snappy at him, and he said to me, he said, "Daddy, do I get on your nerves? Daddy, do you want me here?" And it killed me. It straight up killed me. Like and I was like, and I had to look at him like, what? Like, where does he? Like, where does he get this? And I was like, dude, like how I approach him and how I deal with conflict, it impacts his life. It impacts his view of himself, and he is the last person that I want to feel. I want him to feel like Daddy doesn't want him here, or that because I'm somewhat more of a disciplinarian in our household, but I have to be like, yo, how do I be grace filled? How do I, and I want to hit this really quick. Some of you hit it on. One of my godfather told me. He said, Robert, you don't have to worry about making your boys hard. He said, hug on them, love on them, be present with them, give them grace. And I think sometimes power is great is when you can extend grace, when you can extend mercy, and you can give love. And that's something that I'm working through, and I'm growing through with my son. Not just being a tyrant. And the Bible talks about not provoking our children to wrath, to anger, and I'm working through letting him know and communicating in a way with him that he understands, because I think for me growing up, I always had, it was always snappy. It was always be seen and not heard. You're a child, stay in a child's place. And I had to realize, and this is just for me, and just saying it out there, that a lot of the ways that I think Black people grew up was from the remnants of slavery. I honestly think that, and I say it like this because when you hear some of the things that the idioms and some of the kind of cultural ways that Black people raise their children, you're like, yo, that sounds like trauma. Like it sounds like trauma, and I realized, like, yo, I had to realize what was passed down. Go get me the switch. Go do this. Go. Like I grew up in the South with all of that, and I'm like, yo, that sounds like. And I had to really think about this, Joe. And I say this, and I'm gonna get off of here. It was like, yo, this sounds like a mother who was trying to protect their children while their husband was being sold, or raped or beaten, and they're like, "Hey, do what I say, do. No questions asked. Stay where I say, sit where I say, sit. Stand up when I say, stand up." It honestly sounds like somebody who was trying to protect their children from the master, and they lived in a kind of hostile environment. And so when I started dissecting that, I'm like, yo, Robert, you're not living in that reality anymore.
Yeah.
That's not your reality, and you don't have to raise your kids that way. And so I've learned, when my children get upset, I don't shut their emotions down. When they get angry, I don't shut their anger down. Hey, you better be quiet. Hey, I try to hear them out, listen through, to a certain point, when it's healthy, to listen to and let them process their emotion. And I've learned when I let them process and talk to them versus talking at them and yelling at them, that I get better results. That takes a little bit more work, but go ahead.
I want to ask you a question, Robert, because I got 2 girls, and whoever else got boy and girls. Do you give more grace to your daughter? Because my wife thinks I'm soft for my daughters, and they got me around their finger.
I'm soft.
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it.
Do you think it's on purpose, or do you think that you're being balanced? I just want to ask that.
Can I? Oh.
Go ahead, bro.
No, I was gonna say. So it's funny you say that, because I had to find myself. I found myself being unbalanced in that when my sons started mentioning it. So I noticed that I was unbalanced with it when my sons started sending my daughter to ask for things for them because they knew I would say yes to her. So that's when I figured, I need to balance this out. But also, let's say on the discipline side, my wife, she tends to think I'm more harder on my daughter than I am my sons. So it's a weird thing. And like one, I don't discipline my daughter. I think I always tell my wife, I don't want my daughter to think that it's okay for any man to hit her. So me whooping her or anything like that, chastise, like I'll talk to her. Like for her, I'm the nurturer, I'm the hugger. For my boys, nah, I'm the disciplinary. So it's like, having that dynamic, because I want my daughter to know, like, hey, the man of the house is supposed to love you unconditionally. The man of the house is supposed to hear you out, hear your emotions out. So that's what I try to do with that balance. But I most definitely am a sucker for my daughter, like a sucker.
Absolutely.
Me too, Eddie.
Absolutely. I got an 11-year-old, and yeah, it's the same way. I'm like, she sometimes, she can do no wrong. My wife's like, are you kidding me? You coming at you die hard. Like, what's your problem? Like, I know.
It is the same with me and my wife. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? The only reason why you have a problem with it is because she has the same access to my heart that you do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny because like earlier today, I heard my son, he was in the back in the pantry. Well, my wife was back there organizing something, and I heard her say, no, you don't need no more snacks. You already had a snack. And about 2 minutes later, he come walking out with a snack. And I'm like, you just told him he don't get no more snacks. I'm like, what's going on with that? She's like, just wait. You got a couple more months. We're going to see how wrapped around her finger you are.
Dude, wrapped ain't the word, man.
Nah.
It's crazy.
It's beyond that. It's beyond. But the crazy thing, when I look at my daughter, like the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, oh, my princess. Like that,
Yeah.
that feeling. And I told my wife, she's like, she can do no wrong, and I'm like, yo, it's because she is a mini you. Like you
Yeah.
have, I will do anything for you, and I'm
Yeah.
like, and I told my wife this the other day. I said, my daughter is the only person in this house that loves me unconditionally. Like
Yeah.
I could make the worst mistake, and my daughter is going to love me unconditionally. So
And
anyway,
yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's
Go ahead.
yeah, I think that's on steroids as well when she's your firstborn.
Oh yeah.
When she's your firstborn, I mean that's the first like I can just remember like just grabbing her and like as soon as like man, this is like yo, I helped in like what's in
Yeah.
my hands right now, you know? And like the first thing that comes down is like a shed of tear and I'm like, oh that's a wrap.
Yeah, I'm the
Um,
same way, man. Like my wife and I, we tried. And the crazy thing is, after we had my middle son, my wife had a miscarriage that caused her to lose one of her fallopian tubes, and they told us that it maybe be like a 20% chance that she ever had another baby. Gave us these, and she had another miscarriage after that. So after 2 years of trying, like my wife was literally like I heard her crying, like I just want a daughter. And like you can hear in the closet, I'm tired of draws, I'm tired of reds, I'm tired of greens. And then we finally got her, and like I held her as like Rob said, like you can do no wrong. Like it's like a unconditional like love puff. Like it's just like man, like I have a little girl that I have to protect. And it's crazy, like as a kid, you grow up watching like dads being overprotective, like this is my baby, this is my baby. And then you grow up and you a father now, you like, I understand them now. Like I understand the father being overprotective over the daughter. And you know what I mean? So like it's when you have your daughter, man, believe me, your pockets are gonna be empty. All the cookies you thought you were gonna have, she's gonna sneak them, and you're not gonna have a problem with it. So you're gonna have so much fun with her, man.
I'm outnumbered at my house. I'm the only guy in the house. I got a girl dog, girl cat, two little girls, my wife, and my
Oh,
mother. So pray for me while y'all, just a
listen.
lot of grace, like I said, a lot of grace.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Listen, man, I am honored. Like, it's funny you start talking about my daughters. Now I want to get off here and I want to go hug my daughter.
Exactly.
Like, but no, listen, guys. I believe that every man is on a journey to authentic manhood, and and being a man, being a father, it takes work. To be honest, it takes work, and so I want to encourage every father, every man that's out there that's on his authentic journey to becoming the best version of himself. Hey, give yourself grace. There's not a manual to become to fatherhood. There probably one, but we haven't read it yet because a lot of men don't read. A lot of men don't read. But listen, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to not make all the right decisions all the time. But listen, one thing that I'm big on: hey, get around a mentor, get around somebody, a brother, somebody who can help you become the best version of yourself. And if you're like me, who didn't have a father growing up, and you're processing to how do I become what I've never seen? How do I become what I've never experienced? Listen, I want you to reach out to me. I want you to reach out to one of these brothers. They will be glad to talk with you, to help you, to coach you, to love on you, to make sure that you are well. Listen, I created this platform because I want men's voice to be heard. I want our perspective to be heard. I want men to know that they exist and that their experience deserves to be acknowledged, deserves to be heard. So listen, I want to say thank you guys to all you brothers who were transparent. Sergio, thank you all the way in Miami, and thank you, Keenan from Tennessee. Thank you, Aaron from all the way out in Bufu land, and Torrance and Eddie. I appreciate you guys. We're also praying tonight for Tracy. He experienced a death in his family, so we're gonna be lifting him up. Listen, I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you guys, the audience. You guys have been amazing. You guys have been amazing. If you love this, please share it. It'll be available on replay. Listen, follow, like, and subscribe to the I Am Man podcast and to this Robert Marshall page. Listen, I enjoy you guys. Hey, listen, one more announcement. I have a book coming out this summer. I have a book coming out this summer called What Every Man Needs to Know. Listen, it was a book that was co-written by myself and an educator. His name is Darnell Weathersby, and a mental health coach. His name is Stephen Donahue. We sat down, we co-wrote this book. It's 5 things that every man should know about himself. And the first thing he needs to know, he needs to have a definition of what it means to be a man. Second thing, every man needs to know that he is enough. The third thing he needs to know is that he has a capacity for love, and he deserves to be loved. The fourth thing is that he was created for something bigger than himself. Did I give y'all 4 or 5? I think I gave you guys. I think that was 5. And yeah, I that was 4. I think I gave you 5. You got to buy the
It
book
was
to get
5.
the 5th one. You got to buy
There you go.
the 5th one. Listen, listen. I appreciate you guys. It's going to be a great book. Thank you so much, all you artists, all you pastors, all you professionals. I appreciate your time. Yo, everybody on Facebook land, on YouTube land, show them some love. If you're listening to the podcast, yo, you're listening to the I Am Man podcast, where every man's voice is heard and his experience is acknowledged. We love y'all. Peace out.